Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being here tonight.
And as always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom from the universe. And as always, welcome. And we hope you're doing well. Thank you, Robert.
Absolutely. It's a good thing. And, as always, we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be doing right back with Black Elk Speaks. This was a book from written in the 1930s by what the heck was the guy's name? Neil something, Earhart or Herhart or whatever. Anyway, no, John Neil Hart. Anyway, he wrote this book back in the 30s, and he interviewed Black Elk. Just for a recap here. And it's basically a story of Black Elk's life, his views, and there's a couple other guys in here too. He went up to his where he was living in his later years and got his whole story. Now, I've run down and I found out that there is a couple other people that have interviewed Black Elk in his later years, and I am going to try to get those and find those books and those things, and we can see what other people had to say about Black Elk, because you remember Black Elk did not speak English, so therefore everything was translated. So verbiage is maybe I'd say the writer would put in a few things to make the story flow. Not that it changes the story much, but
Embellished.
There's a good word. Yes, embellished a little bit. And why not? You're writing a story. He was a poet. You can't be just writing, "Hey, we went uphill. Yes, soldiers there. We ran away." What kind of story would that be?
Yeah, things that he might have embellished on would have been the kind of day it was, how cold it was, was there snow on the grass, or, but something like that. Whereas, like you just said, they would have just went up the hill and down the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's how we talk. Most people talk like that, unless you're like some super storyteller where, yeah, we were on the edge of the hill and the grass was blowing in the wind, as green as the day is long. And we crawled as the bugs and crickets were, chirping in the marsh brush next door as a cool breeze blew by, we knew. And then we crawled up the hill slowly, and we could smell the fear in their hearts. As we came up the hill, we could hear them clamoring in their footsteps and the dust rolling up behind them, Now there's, but who talks like that?
And the many buffalo chips we had to crawl through,
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
But yes.
Absolutely. So, it's probably, give or take a little bit. But for the most part, this is a good book. Apparently, this book, he wrote it in the 30s. And it didn't catch on. It was kind of a flop. But then come the 60s and 70s, the book was reprinted and the modern age kind of picked up on it. And I didn't realize this, but in the 60s and 70s, there was a newfound interest in Indian culture. And during that time, it was like a revival, and people wanted to know more about the Indian culture at this point in time. And
it was the hippie days, by the way.
Yes, it was the hippie days, and that's how they sold the book, is by saying, this is cosmic and psychedelic, it's a great read, blow your mind. And people were like, wow, and I'm gonna buy that book and read it. And there we go.
Well, anyway, I remember folks talking about it back in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was more about not so much, ooh, wow, mind bending. It was more about this is what when Black Elk discusses things. It's like, wow, did that really happen? Honest to God, that's America. And then it was all about trying to get back to the land and to try to understand. And so here was, here were the native peoples, still going through turmoils. They still are. To this day, there are still issues with native tribes.
Yes. And Black Elk will talk about, the Sundance, for instance. But did you know that the government literally banned the Sundance until the late 70s? Did you? I did not know that. Even though it was kind of banned, publicly, but they did do it in back areas. They still did it. And I was doing a little research today about that, and they were saying how there's certain songs you sing at a Sundance. And these songs, they weren't wrote down; they were just passed down. And when you could start doing the sun dances again, they only had a couple of songs to sing. But how did that go? The guy said when they started singing things, they had 2 songs to sing. That's all they had. So they sang these songs over and over and over and over all day long. Well, other older people, finally came and said, listen, I know a Sundance song from way back in the day, and passed that down to these guys. And the guy says, well, after a while, by the end of that session or whatever, they had 15 songs to sing, because these older people came forward to pass down those songs, because they're all oral. They pass down everything orally.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? So, I guess it's a good thing that the revival happened before those older people passed on. Otherwise, it's really lost to history. And that's what we're all about here, preserving some of that history, because there's something good to learn about everything. I mean, only tyrants ban history and then make you start out fresh, like you have, and then you're always going to wonder, because you're going to have like amnesia. Where'd I come from? Who am I? Why did my people do that? What they did back in the day? What was going on there?
What is the history of our traditions?
Yeah, I mean, look at humanity itself. We have researchers that search every day, have searched hundreds of years to find out, where did we come from? Who are we? Why are we like we are? Who was the first man? Well, how did we cross the ocean and get to North America? All these things. Who were we? Denisovans, Clovis people? Were we this or that or the other? I mean, because the human nature wants to know. We're curious kinds of people.
Yep.
And we're always looking for a way to find out. And of course, Black Elk.
Can I mention something before you move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the Sundance.
Yes.
Okay. I think it was in a Man Called Horse.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So it shows him going through part of a Sundance.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, that's
where they put hooks in your chest.
Yes.
And then you lean back and you hang. And I've known some people in my powwow days, and one lady, she was called a second. They got another name for it. But the person who is hanging by their chest, there is a person that supports them from behind. Yeah. And they have to, and there's actually supposed to be like 2 runners. And if the person needs water or they need something or whatever, and that they have to be with them for like 3 days. I was amazed. I was like, what? She goes, yeah, if we got tired and couldn't stay awake, we slept on the ground right there. She
Mm-hmm.
said, rain or shine, it didn't matter. Once it was started, once the ceremony was started, you were just there. And if you made a commitment and you said you were going to do it, then by golly, you had to do it. And it was like I had no idea. I was like, so it's a day. Nope. There are days of fasting and other types of things, and I was just amazed at how extensive and how taxing a Sundance is. And for example, you just can't say, "Hey, I want to go do it." You have to pass certain tests before you're allowed to do the Sundance.
Yeah, I
You
think
have you have to prove yourself. She said something about, yeah, this guy that wanted to do the Sundance had to prove himself before the elders a year before they had the ceremony. And I was like, what? They go, yeah, he had to present who he was and his reasons, and it was sort of like an application. You just didn't say, hey, I want to go do the Sundance. So, but anyway, since you brought it up, I was like, there was a lot to the Sundance. And
mm-hmm.
for those who have ever participated and made it through to the other side, they're like, dude, the experience of it, and of course it's all very personal, but while the people who are at a particular event, a particular Sundance, let's just say the Sundance of 2020, I'm making this up, but the Sundance of 2020, so anybody who participated in that had a spiritualness for that year, if that makes sense. They
Yeah.
had a communal experience along with personal experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Oh yeah, you brought up some good stuff. Here's a picture of a Sundance. It's not the greatest. Here's a little more depiction. The pole in the middle. They dance around. Sometimes it was a big outdoor thing. It usually was outdoors kind of deal, but here's pictures on a buffalo hide. As you can see, they got poles here and they're dancing around. Buffalo everywhere. It makes sense, I don't know. You'd have to stare at the picture for a while to make sense of it all. Oh, that's we got to go there. Well, we got. Come on, the cursor doesn't want to move. I don't know why that is. Anyway, okay, hang on a second. I'm going to shrink this, and I'm going to put this back up, and then we're going to watch a little bit of this. Here's the Sundance from what's his name? The Man Called Horse. Can't get this out of my mouth tonight. Sorry. Okay. Come on. Share. There we go. Hope y'all can see this. We're just going to play a little bit of this. Oh, there's the whistle. Heard a flute. Okay, that's gotta hurt, you know. And there he goes having his vision,
Oh yeah.
you know. I think that's what it's all about, is having that, you know, that vision. Okay. It's all about the vision.
Tatanka Ska, spirit animal, buffalo white. Speak the truth in humility to all people. Only then can you be a true man and free of your chains.
Okay.
Well, I want to point out something.
Yes.
If that was an individual rite versus a Sundance, there may be 2 participants, there may be 6 participants. And so the pole in the center where they all kind of hang from. So it's not the same, but it's similar.
Yeah. Like I said, that's when you said that, I thought, well, we're gonna. I'll look it up and see, because I remember that scene in that movie.
Yeah,
you know?
how they hang is the same, but they were inside a teepee lodge kind of thing. They lifted them up. This is a true Sundance is outside.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was similar.
I'm just pointing it out. You know.
Oh yeah. I totally get what you're saying. Like I said, you know, I'm just that was the, you know, I mean, you don't see those on TV. I think that's the only one that's anything close to that, unless you ever seen a different movie, kind of the same way.
They don't allow folks in. You know,
No,
when
but
I
I mean, a
one
movie that has that kind of thing on there. You know what I mean? The
yeah,
Man Called Horse is probably the closest one that I could ever
yep,
remember him having.
yep. But I mean, in the true times, if there's a Sundance, you have to be invited by one of the if there is a participant, you have to be invited by that person and vetted. You know, you just don't drive up and participate.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's very it's a serious ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, the government had banned it, and you know they did it in the back alleys, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, they did.
You
Yep.
know, because like I said, you know they weren't going to get rid of it, but you know the government wanted them to get it. You know, get rid of their culture. Period. I think if they could have, they would have wiped all their memories and, you know, started them off.
They tried, absolutely. And it's just like the ghost dance. You know, in certain places, you know, they went off in the back country somewhere, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, they had a fire going. And, you know, who was to say they were watching what they were doing? You know what I mean? So there were privately folks who were still doing the ghost dance, by the way, too, but it was very private, very private. A couple of folks within the tribe kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. Let's see. So anyway, so we're gonna go on with Black Elk here, and he talks about all this stuff, but there were some good story pieces in here. Now we're gonna talk about the little bighorn. We're gonna start out with that and the war, you know, because who doesn't like the war stuff? And if I could find my page that I was doing here. Oh yeah, here we go. Now, we started out talking about some of this, but there's so many great stories in here that just blow my mind. Remember last week, they were there and they shot a buffalo and they're cooking up a buffalo meat while the war is going on. You know what I mean? And I thought
Just
that was
over the rise there, there's a barbecue going on.
if they were from the South, that's exactly what it'd be. It'd be like,
Yeah, they were from the Southern tribe.
yeah. So anyway, this here is what we see when we see the battle of Little Bighorn and the soldiers and the Indians coming over the hill and shooting and fighting and here's Custer or something, and oh my goodness, the Indians are got their guns and they're shooting and fighting, whatever. But in all reality, most of them had bows and arrows. There weren't that many guns. The Indians had bows and arrows, and here's depictions from the Indian side. And as you can see, there's arrows sticking in these guys, and there's just a guy or two, with here's a guy with a gun and all the soldiers, and he's stabbing them with a lance, and they got things going on. You know what I mean?
Yep. Let me point out something.
Yes.
One reason why they didn't have so many guns was they didn't have ammunition.
Yes.
They might have had guns, but they only had so much ammunition. So they took what guns they had and filled them full, with all the ammo they had. And the rest of the folks, went traditional. But just why weren't they as well equipped? Well, they just didn't have the ammunition.
They didn't. They really didn't. And as you can see here in this picture, you notice the horses of the army versus the horses of the Indians. The Indian horses, colorful. Army horses, plain. Solid colored horses, grays, blacks, whites, things like that. I've noticed. But in this picture, all the horses they're shooting the horses. This little horse looks like it's dead. They all got saddles. The cavalrymen got saddles. The Indians, no saddle. Some mere little points. And this is Custer's last battle here, which didn't really last, I don't think, that long. But to bring us up to this story, we're gonna go with they were going to Crazy Horse. The people and the ponies, we have all plenty. Crazy Horse kept his teepees, and our band made camp on the Tongue River. We built corrals of poles for the horses at night and herded them all day because the Crows were great horse thieves. Now, I'm going to skip over this and just give you my version of what happened here. Otherwise, it's going to be too much. And it talks about, there was a guy, and his name was Crow Nose, and the Crows would like to steal the horses. So they made these corrals with the poles to keep the horses in at night, right? Well, one of the Crows, or one of the Sioux remember he's an Oglala Sioux, they would set out a guard. Of course, you want to guard your horses at night. And he put his teepee, this guy named Crow Nose and his wife, they put up their teepee right next to the corral. But in the middle of the night, it was cold and it's wintry, and there's apparently some snow on the ground. And all of a sudden, Crow Nose got tired. And so he says, I'm tired, wife, you keep watch over the horses for a little while so I can get some rest. And the wife says, sure, I will do that, as any a good wife would. And hey, there's Allie Berry. Thank you for coming. Nina the Mystic's in the house. And Musgrave Griffin Jeannie's in the house. Renee Hutchinson and Lucky Stone. Just sending out good vibes to all of them too. Thank you. Anyway, so what happens is Is Kronos and his wife are there. The wife, he says, I'm getting some rest. The wife is watching, and all of a sudden, she sees a shadowy figure. And it's moving around in a horse pen. And so she wakes her husband, and the husband gets up, and he could see somebody in the horse corral. And it picks out one of their best horses. And the horse, so they wait, and he sees the horse, the poles come down, and all of a sudden the horse gets let outside of the poles, and a man jumps on the horse. And of course, this is how it goes. By and by, we could hear the bar lifted and the mouth of the corral when his wife touched him. Kronos thrust his head outside and saw the man just getting on the horse to ride away. He was black against the sky, so Kronos shot him, and the shot woke the whole camp. So that many came running with guns and coop sticks. Yellow Shirt was the first to count coup on the dead crow, but many followed. A man who has killed an enemy must not touch him, for he has already had the honor of killing. He must let another count coup. Then I got there to see. A pile of coup sticks was laying beside the crow, and the women had cut him up. See, don't ever steal a horse, because this is what will happen to you. The women cut him up with axes and scattered him around. It was horrible. Then the people built the fire right there beside the crow, and we had a kill dance. Men, women, and children danced right in the middle of the night, and they sang songs about Kronos, who had killed, and Yellow Shirt, who had counted the first coup. Wow.
All the women came out and chopped him up.
Chopped him up and scattered him around for trying to steal that horse.
That just must have been a mess.
Yeah, and then it's like, hey, we killed a crow. Let's party on. Get the drums and start a fire in the middle of the night. I am just, I'm reading this and I'm just thinking to myself, like, holy cow, Oh, yeah.
Well, but to shoot somebody, or one way or the other, counting coup, as we have talked about over the years, we've never talked about somebody getting caught or getting shot. We always talk about how they steal the horses and get away. We've never talked about what they do to them if they get caught.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's why there's stories about them getting away, because when they don't get away, there's no part of you left to tell the story.
Yeah, you don't get to go home and talk about it.
Oh boy!
Wow, goodness. Well, now we see. After a year and a half of telling stories and talking about stuff, we've sort of learned a little bit, haven't we? That's the reason why we've never heard of anybody, surviving.
Well, and
if they get caught, they get chopped up, literally.
Well, and most of these books that I read, they're written by the white man, with a twist of the little bit what they could find out from the native,
right.
And of course, I'm sure that the guy writing the book sifts through the whatever he's writing about to make it sound like, oh, there was a heroine woman and she shot 14 Indians, and her husband, he fought to the bitter end, killing 25 in a big pile out back. But then one lucky arrow hit him in the chest and he died. You see what I'm saying? And,
yep.
because the white man was that much better all the time. Okay. But anyway, okay, so anyway,
But did they call it a death? Did you say a death dance?
Yes, a death dance.
Wow.
Yeah, and they celebrate the guy who killed him and the one who counted coup first. Even though he was dead after getting shot, he still counted coup. But anyhow, Pa Joe's in the house. He says, probably not a good day to get caught. Yeah. And Chloe's here. Chloe. Hey, she's at work, but she's listening. Good deal. Anyway, we're going to tell some good stories tonight. Anyway, so now they're here. They're on the greasy grass or the river, and it's winter. But some of these guys the Indians are getting a little perturbed, and they are heading back. They are going back to the soldiers' town to some of Red Cloud's loafers. The ones that want to, just sit around the fort all day and get handouts. Well, a bunch of them left, and the one came back, and he says, because they thought maybe there'd be trouble, and the crows had killed all of his party but himself while they were sleeping, and he had escaped because he was out scouting. Well, and that just brings up another one of those, it was back then. It wasn't just you were fighting the white man, you were fighting the settlers, or you were fighting the cavalry coming, down the road. You were fighting other Indian tribes too. It was a dog-eat-dog world there. Little did the Indians realize that they were all on the same. They're kind of on the same side, but yet I don't like those, Sioux over there. I don't like those Crow over there. We're gonna battle it out and kill ourselves off. When they should have been saying, "Let's shake hands. We have a common enemy." Right?
Absolutely. And, we think about there, not only were there tribal rivalries, but I'm sure, that, I'm making up names, Buffalo had, had issues with Red Nose from another tribe, or maybe from the same tribe, and they'd had issues with steal my woman kind of thing, or he got coup on a buffalo or something, and it might have been, that while they were riding around and whooping in the holler, and he shot his buddy in the back,
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff like that went on, because if he survived, better that he die in battle, as they all say, and then for him to have murdered him in some other way. So he's like, well, he died in battle, with an arrow in his back. Well, it was a stray bullet,
Yeah, well.
Friendly fire.
Friendly fire. And that happened a lot, though. Friendly fire was.
Really, it did.
Yes, it did. So anyway, the Crows killed his party, all but himself. And during the winter, runners came from the Wasichus and told us we must come into the soldiers' town right away, or there would be bad trouble, bad juju on that, And then they said it was foolish to stay there, but they did anyway. What? Late in the moon of the dark red calves. What month is that?
Not a clue.
Okay, late in the moon of the dark red calves. Think hard on it. When the calf is born, it is born and it's light tan. And as it gets older, it starts getting darker and darker and darker. And then when it's fully, grown, it's dark brown and black. So what month do they get born?
I guess in the spring, March.
Yeah. March, April, May, somewhere in there. And this would make it. Come on.
August.
No.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
What month is this?
February.
That's right. You're right. Bingo. It's February. February is when they turn colors, because now they're almost a year old.
Oh.
Yeah, because if they're born in the spring and it's February. It says here, late in the moon, a dark red calf. So that tan is turning. I'm trying to teach you something here. I know about buffalo. So anyway, the calves start turning, and they turn this like dark coppery red color. That light tan, it starts getting darker and darker. Now they turn this dark coppery red color, and then by the spring they start bringing in, now they're a year old, and they start bringing in that buffalo looking brown blackish color. You know what I mean?
I see.
There you go. Yeah. It's all by the color of their hide, Anyway, and there was a big thaw, and the little band started for the soldiers' town, but it was very cold. And again, before we got there, Crazy Horse stayed with about 100 teepees on the Powder River. And in the middle of the moon of the snow blind, and I would, which would be after February, which would be
March.
All right. Snow blind. I did not know that one. Snow blind is March. Something bad happened. It was just daybreak. There was a blizzard, and it was very cold. The people were sleeping. Suddenly, there were many shots and horses galloping through the village. It was the cavalry of the Wasichus, and they were yelling and shooting and riding their horses against the teepees. All of the people rushed out and ran because they were not awake yet, and they were frightened. The soldiers killed as many women and children and men as they could while the people were running toward the bluff. Then they set fire to some of the teepees and knocked the others down. But when the people were on the side of the bluff, Crazy Horse said something, and all the warriors began singing the death song. And then they charged back upon the soldiers, and the soldiers ran, driving many of the ponies ahead of them. Crazy Horse followed them all day and night with a band of warriors, and at night he took all the stolen ponies away. He took them for some of their own horses and brought them back to the village. And the thing is that he says here, these people were in their own country and they were doing no harm. All they wanted to be was left alone. But this is how the soldiers, treated them. This was so unfair. So unfair. Okay, and I am going to skip over a few of these, and I got to get to
unprovoked.
Yeah. Yes, very unprovoked. And I'm going to go Iron Hawk. Oh, okay. So Iron Hawk, this gets into the fighting. Iron Hawk speaks. I am a hung papa. I was 14 years old that summer, and I was a big boy. 2 war parties went out, and after a very large one from the south end of the camp, and one from the north end of the camp, I went with the small one, and there were only about 40 of us. And let's see, he goes on. Language, take courage. Oh no, wait a minute. Oh, maybe this is Standing Bear. I think I read that one already. Crazy Horse with the 3 stars on Rosebud. There was one in here I wanted to read. There was a good story about this. Child Hung Papa. You get so many of these. The 6-shooter. God, I just went over this too. I put my marker in there and then I moved it. Oh, hang on a second. Oh yeah, here we go. Man named Little Bear rode up the Pinto pony in the very saddle. We stayed there a while. Okay. This was another one. A little bear saw a horse racing up the hill towards the soldiers, and we got close. His horse was shot out from under him. Yeah, this is the one I wanted to read. Okay. And this is he's talking about, this is Iron Hawk again. Yeah, this is the one I wanted. I am a hump pop, and I told you before, I was 14 years old. The sun was overhead, had been sleeping and eating, yada, yada, yada. Our horses stampeded down towards the Miniconchus, but we rounded them up again and brought them back. By now the warriors were running towards the soldiers and getting on the ponies, and many of the hump papas were gathering in the brush and the timber. near the place where the soldiers had stopped and got off their horses. I rode past a very old man who was shouting, "Boys, take courage. Would you see these little children taken away from me like dogs?" And he's talking about the families there. You know, there. It seems like every time you wanted to go to fight, somebody would say, "Think about the women and children. Think about your families. Think about the little kids. Think about all of those people that you're protecting." You know,
Yep.
and I guess that's a way to do it. And went into our teepees and got dressed for war as fast as I could. But I could hear the bullets whizzing outside. I'm so shaky that it took me a long time to braid an eagle feather into my hair. Also, I had to hold my pony's rope all the time, and he was kept jerking me and trying to get away. While I was doing this, crowds of warriors on horses were roaring by upstream, yelling, "Hawkeye hey!" Now, with all of that, it's the part where he stops. We're going to war, right? I got to put an eagle feather in my hair. I got to get ready because, you know, I want to be dressed good. I want to go out there and, you know, and look the part. I rubbed paint all over my face and took my bow and arrows and got on my horse. I did not have a gun, only bows and arrows. When I was on my horse, the fight upstream seemed to be over because everybody was starting back downstream and yelling, "It's a good day to die. Soldiers were coming at the other end of the village, and nobody knew how many there were." A man named Little Bear rode up on me on a pinto pony. It was very pretty with a pretty blanket. "Take courage, boy. The earth is all that lasts." And that is so true. The earth is all that lasts. There were very brave Sheilas with us, and I heard someone say, "He is going." I looked, and it was a Sheila. And he had on a spotted war bonnet and a spotted robe. And this is kind of cool. You got to listen to this part. Okay, he had a spotted robe made of some animal skin, and this was fastened with a spotted belt. He was going up the hill alone, and we all followed part way. There were soldiers along the ridge up there, and they were on foot, holding their horses. The Sheila rode right close to them in a circle several times, and all the soldiers shot at him. Then he rode back to where we had stopped at the head of the gulch. He was saying, "Ah, ah." Someone said, "Sheila, friend, what is the matter?" He began undoing his spotted belt, and when he shook it, bullets dropped out. He was very scared, and the soldiers could not hurt him. He was a fine-looking man. Can you imagine that? Them shooting at you and the bullets sticking in your cloak, you know, and then and then he was very scared. You think these guys were brave, but they went out there, they were scared. They were just scared just because, you know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about bravery, though, running right up there. And these guys, when they were shooting, they weren't shooting little bullets back those days. Those were bits that would literally blow a tree stump out of the ground.
Didn't they use there was like a 44 that was real common in the West, which was like almost a 45 for those folks who don't know. But, you know, so it's larger, you know, they shoot bullets now that are less than a 38. You know, they're a 9mm kind of thing, which is a lot smaller than a 44. So, yeah, if you got hit with one of those slugs back in the day.
Yeah, well, look at an AR-15 is just a 5.56, which is like the size of a 22 shell. It's just got a lot of gunpowder behind it. And back then, maybe back then the gunpowder wasn't so powerful, but the bullet coming out of the gun was humongous.
Now I was just going to say something about the gunpowder. The gunpowder, they refined it, and a lot of the bullets and everything were made, but the gunpowder ain't like it is today. And also, it depends, for those who might not know, it depends on how many grains of gunpowder you put in that shell. So you could put in this much, and the bullet would fly. But if you put in this much, it's really going to go. So, it depended on how much gunpowder was in it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anybody that reloads shells will tell you, those guys. I know a few guys who reload shells, and they will reload their shells for, shooting certain distances for different type of hunting. If you're going to shoot, birds, you're going to shoot, you put less, and if you're going to shoot deer, you're going to shoot more. If you got to shoot, you want a long range, you know what I mean. So your gun don't
yeah.
kick. You
And
put in so much.
And if you're gonna, my brother, when he did a lot of his own, if he was just gonna go out target practicing, he wouldn't put near as much gunpowder in him because he was just gonna be shooting,
Yeah.
And but if he was gonna go out a hunting, then he might almost put twice as much in, and so it saved on gunpowder. So, but to that point, depending on where you got your ammo, who reloaded it, but the gunpowder was not near as good as it was. It was, hard to come by in many times, and the ingredients. So it was unrefined, as it were.
Yes, it was, and it was smoky. You can see
A lot.
in the maybe I can find a picture. Where's my little cursor? I got this cursor in it.
Yeah, that's something that you bring up. In the old West, you see those gunfights. If you see gunfights now, you don't see a bunch of gun smoke.
No,
But in the old days, it's true. There was more sulfur and stuff, and look at all that smoke. You would not see that today in a gunfight.
No, you would not be seeing that kind of.
And that's because of the gunpowder.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, they were like shooting cannons back in those days, literally, the handheld cannon, or the rifle. But the amount of gunpowder and how they did them, that looks like they had a bunch of cannons going off around them.
Yeah, well, and the fact that those guns were a lot bigger, and those were them Springfields. You had to do single shot, and it wasn't unless you got the Henry rifles. There wasn't many of them even. It was mostly these Springfield lever action where you put one bullet in, you shoot, and you put another bullet in, you shoot. Left over from the Civil War. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Unless you were the cavalry, and then you had repeaters.
Yeah.
Those lever action.
Yep. How come this is my cursor just took a digger on me? Anyway, okay, we'll go keep it up to that picture. Anyway, here we go. I saw Little Bear's horse. We stayed for a while, and okay, I'm going there. Stampeding. Okay, we stayed there a while, waiting for something, and there was shooting everywhere. Then I heard a voice crying, "Now they are going! They are going!" We looked up and saw the cavalry horses stampeding. These were all gray horses. Remember, the cavalry, they would match their horses up. So one troop would have all grays, one troop would have pintos, one troop would have, all, one color or another. It wasn't like everybody just grab a horse. You know what I mean?
Right. There was, and they bred a lot of them that were just brown.
Yes, they like the brown bays. Just brown horses, period, were their favorites. Okay, he says, I saw Little Bear's horse rear up and race uphill towards the soldiers. When he got close, his horse was shot out from under him. This is where bravery comes in. Listen to this. This is a good one. And he got up limping because the bullet went through his leg, and he started hobbling back to us with the soldiers shooting at him. His brother, friend, Elk Nation, went up there on his horse and took Little Bear behind him and rode back safe with bullets striking all around him. It was his duty to go to his brother, friend, even if he knew he would be killed. I mean, how many people nowadays would take under bravery like that? Be like, oh,
Well,
You
the
know,
Marines, they never leave a man behind, but they're, but to a lot of other points, nope, sorry, I'm not going out there, you know, too many
yeah,
bullets.
too many bullets. Exactly. Oh, there we go.
Please, Mr. Custer, I don't want to go.
Yeah. Ah, there my cursor's working again. I don't know why this thing took such a digger. Anyway, okay, so let's see. We saw the soldiers running down hill right towards us. Nearly all of them were on foot, and I think they were so scared that they didn't know what they were doing. They were making their arms go as if they were running very fast, but they were only walking. Some of them shot their guns in the air. We yelled, "Honk a hey!" and charged towards them, riding all around them in twilight that had fallen on us. And so it means it was getting evening, it was getting dark. And these guys are, I mean, I think somehow the soldiers thought they were cocky because they had big guns, and these guys didn't have much of anything, you know. And so when the Indians came, they weren't really afraid of them. I got a gun, you got a bow and arrow. What are you going to do to me, right?
Yeah.
I met a soldier on horseback, and I let him have it. The arrow went through from side to side under his ribs, and it stuck out on both sides. He screamed, and I took hold of his saddle horn, or he took hold of his saddle horn and hung on, wobbling, and his head hanging down. I kept along beside him, and I took my heavy bow and struck him across the back of the neck. He fell from his saddle, and I got off and beat him to death with my bow. I kept on beating him a while after he was dead, and every time I hit him, I said, "Oh, ah." I was mad because I was thinking of the women and little children running down there, all scared out of breath. These Wasichus wanted it, and they came to get it, and we gave it to them. Like I said,
read that sentence again.
the Wasichus wanted it, and they came to get it, and we gave it to them. I did
That's
not
great.
see much more. I saw Brings Plenty kill a soldier with a war club. Yeah. So the thing is these guys, and you notice they're not using their arrow. They'll beat them with their bow, or they'll knock them in the head with a club, trying to save bullets or save arrows and things like that. Anyway, and they were doing it for the women and children.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I saw Red Horn Buffalo fall. There was a Lakota riding along the edge of a gulch, and he was yelling to look out. There was a soldier. This is a good one. Soldier hiding in there. I saw him charge in and kill the soldier and begin slashing him with a knife. Then we began to go towards the river, and the dust was lifting so that we could see that the women and children were coming over to us from across the river. The soldiers were all rubbed out of there and scattered around. The women swarmed up the hill, and this is the part, this gets kind of funny too. But it just tells you, the warriors went in and did they did the killing, and then the women went in and after. The women swarmed up the hill and began stripping the soldiers. They were yelling and laughing and singing now. I saw something funny. 2 fat old women were stripping a soldier who was wounded and playing dead. When they had him naked, they began to cut something off that he had, and he jumped up and began fighting with the 2 fat women. I wonder what they were cutting off. Tallywhacker or something?
Yeah.
No, you can have my clothes, but no. And he said he was swinging. He jumped up, began fighting with the 2 fat women. He was swinging one of them around while the other was trying to stab him with her knife. After a while, another woman rushed up and shoved her knife into him, and he died really dead. It was funny to see the naked Wasichu fighting with the fat women.
I bet you that must have been one hell of a sight.
Yeah, and then women just Then he ended up really dead then.
Ended up really dead.
Yes. And I suppose, yeah, I bet you they cut off his wing dinger then. Her name wasn't Lorraine Bobbitt either.
Yeah.
By now, we saw that our warriors were charging on some soldiers, and we could come up a hill, up the river, to help the second band, and we had rubbed out. They ran back, and we followed, chasing them up onto the hill again, and they had their pack mules. Where they had their pack mules, we could not hurt them much there because they had been digging in to hide themselves, and they lay there, laying behind the saddles and other things. I was down by the river, and I saw some soldiers come down there with buckets. They had no guns, just buckets. Some boys were down there, and they came out of the brush and threw mud and rocks in the soldiers' faces and chased them into the river. I guess they got enough to drink, for they are drinking yet. We killed them in the water. Yeah, I remember that story on the white man's side, and it didn't sound like that so much. After a while, it was nearly sundown, and I went home with many others to eat, while some others stayed to watch soldiers on the hill. I hadn't eaten all day because the trouble started just then when I was beginning to eat my first meal. Black Elk continues now. After I showed my mother my first scalp, I stayed with the women a while, and they were all singing and making tremolo. Tremolo? Tremolo. I don't even know what that would be. Tremolo.
Me neither.
It doesn't say here. Usually there's a little caption. We could not see much of the battle from the big dust, but we knew that there would be no soldiers left. There were many other boys about my age and younger up, and with their mothers and sisters, and they asked me to go over to the battle with them. So we got on our ponies and started. While we were riding downhill towards the river, we saw gray horses with empty saddles stampeding towards the water. We rode over across the greasy grass to the mouth of the gulch that led up through the bluff to where the fighting was. Before we got there, the Wasishoes were all down, and most of them were dead. But some of them were still alive and kicking. Still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
Many, literally. Many other little boys had come up by this time, and we rode around shooting arrows into the Wasishoes. There was one who was squirming around with arrows sticking in him, and I started to take his coat, but a man pushed me away and took the coat for himself. Then I saw something bright hanging on the soldier's belt, and I pulled it out. It was round, bright, and yellow, and very beautiful. I put it on me for a necklace. At first, it ticked inside, and then it did not anymore. I wore it around my neck for a long time before I found out what it really was and how to make it tick again. You know what he had?
Oh, a watch.
Yeah, a pocket watch. And probably had a gold chain on it. And he says, "This looks pretty. It's a medallion. It's gold."
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was ticking. That's the coolest medallion ever. Can you imagine? Look, it's making noise. Then the women all came over, and we went to the top of the hill. Gray horses were lying dead there, and some of them were on top of dead Wasishoes, and dead Wasishoes were on top of them. There were not many of our own dead there because they had been picked up already, but many of our men were killed and wounded. They shot each other in the dust. Yes, this is the part. See, this is where you were talking about killing the other guy, killing your own. Many of our men were killed and wounded. They shot each other in the dust. I did not see Pahuska, and I think nobody knew which one he was. There was a soldier who was raising his arm and groaning. I shot an arrow into his forehead, and his arms and legs quivered. These guys are just like, "Oh, look, there's one moving." Oh my gosh.
Plus, it was good target practice.
And I don't think nothing of it. They're just like, I just shot one. I went over there, and it was Chase in the Morning's brother, who was called Black Wasishoe. He had been shot through the right shoulder downward, and the bullet stopped in his left hip. because he was hanging on the side of his horse when he was hit. They were trying to give him some medicine. He was my cousin. And his father and my father were so angry over this that they went and butchered a Wasichu and cut him open. The Wasichu was fat, and his meat looked good to eat, but we did not eat any. There was a little boy, younger than I was, who asked me to help scalp a soldier for him. I did, and he ran to show his scalp to his mother. While he was there, most of the warriors chased the other soldiers back to the hill where they had their pack mules. After a while, I got tired looking around. I could smell I could smell nothing but blood, and I got sick of it, so I went back home with the others. I was not sorry at all. I was a happy boy. Those Wasichus had come to kill our mothers and fathers and us, and it was our country. When I was in the brush up there by the Humpapas and the first soldiers were shooting, I knew this would happen. I thought that my people were relatives to the thunder beings of my vision. Remember, he has visions. And the soldiers were very foolish to do this. Everybody was up all night in the village. The next morning, the war party went up to the hill where the soldiers were, and the men who had been watching there all night came home. My mother and I went along. She rode a mare with a little colt tied beside her, and we trotted along with its mother. We could see the horses and the pack mules up there, but the soldiers were dug in beneath the hill, right on the west side of the greasy grass, were some bullberry bushes, and there was a big boy by the name of Round Fool who was running around the bushes. This is kind of an interesting story right here. We boys asked him what he was doing for that, and he said there was a Wasichu in that bush, and there was. He had hidden there when the other soldiers ran up the top of the hill, and he had been there all night. When the boys began shooting at him with arrows, and it was like chasing a rabbit, he would crawl from one side to the other while we were running around the bush shooting at him with our bows. Once he yelled, "Ow!" After a while, we set fire to the grass around the bushes, and he came out running. Some of our warriors killed him. Once we went up to the back of the hill where some of the men looked over, we could not see the Wasichus who were lying in their dug-ins, but we saw the horses and the pack mules, and many of them were dead. When we came down and crossed the river again, some soldiers shot at us and hit the water. Mother and I galloped back to the camp, and it was about sundown. By then, our scouts had reported that more soldiers were coming upstream, so we broke camp. Before dark, we were all ready, and we were started up the greasy grass, headed for Wood Louie Creek on the Big Horn Mountains, or in the Big Horn Mountains. We fled all night following the greasy grass. My two brothers and I rode up on the pony drag. Well, there you go. And then it just goes in, talks about but anyway, I thought that was some good stories of the fight, and I hope you all enjoyed that. But it is interesting to hear their side of what we would say is, because we always get it from the soldier side, like, oh, we were dug in, and the arrows were flying, and the Indians were watching, and our men were dying, and they were killing our mules and horses. Yeah, well, yeah, you went there, but they don't ever say, why did we go there? We went there to kill the women and children and burn their teepees to the ground because they were bad Indians.
Right. Nobody asked why the Indians were PO'd.
No, nobody asked if you were the right Indians. He just said, look, there's Indians. Let's go shoot them and kill them. And that's what I think with the bad thing. They were always going on about, here we are, peaceful, on this river, grazing our horses. We're just living our life.
Minding their own business.
Yeah, this is our land. Everything is good. And then all of a sudden, the soldiers come in and they chase us out. Like in the beginning there, we talked about that, how they chased out Crazy Horse there, and the middle of, in the morning or night in the blizzard. And all of a sudden, here they are. And they're like, hey, let's shoot everybody as they get out of their teepees and burn them to the ground and chase their horses off in the middle of the night or early morning when they're still sleeping. And
Yeah.
That's that just gets a person. It's like, what did you not see what the it just makes me mad too, because maybe there could have been some compromise. Oops, wrong one. Sorry.
Well, it's like it was all about attitude, and
Yeah.
there were so many folks that just hated the Indian. There are
Yeah.
still folks to this day that can't stand Indians. And so it's like, so what do you do about something like that? I remember a time when a man said, that he'd take one black man to two Native Americans
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because the black man was worth more than two Indians, and it was like, what? And black men weren't really considered, worth a lot, But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, it's interesting because Custard and his band of merry men got slaughtered out there on the hill, but I bet you they didn't tell the story of the Indians until way later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The news of the massacre of Custer was overplayed just like things are today. What about the Indians? What about they went in a day or two before and slaughtered? What about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody hears these stories.
Nope.
From the Indian
They
side.
didn't hear them back then. So all they heard was that Custer and his men were slaughtered by the Indians, And so, but the Indians are going, well, wait, hang on here. You know what they did to us first?
Yeah. And Custard had like 250 guys, and he was going in there to this camp, and he was going to shoot and kill them all. That's what his goal was, is to take his cavalry in and shoot and kill as many as he could and wipe them out. Because, according to what was going on at that time, was the rule is if they weren't on a reservation, they were wild Indians, and they were to be, shot on sight.
Yep. And there was one of his own men, one of the other squad leaders or whatever, and they didn't join in right away, and which could have turned the tide of the situation. But he was like, he was and reading about this years ago, what I remember, he was like, he didn't really want to get tied in with the ruckus. He was like, we're all going to get slaughtered, Yeah. And so they kind of held back. And as I remember, I'm not sure if they joined them later on or not, but I think those were some of the survivors that reported it because they didn't join in the battle.
Well, there was the one group that got, I forget which guy it was. I can't remember the name so good. Crook, I think it was. He was coming up from behind, and he got stopped up on that hill. And he was that his group was the one that got dug in. I read the story one time, and it was amazing how they got up on this hill, and they just decided, they knew there was too many of them to fight, so they just dug in with their it was hot because it was out in the sun, and they just dug in with whatever they had, their bayonets and stuff, and they piled their saddles up and shot their horses to make a like a barricade so that they had something to hide behind. And so many of their guys were getting killed, and it was they didn't have any water, and like I said, they were going. There was a little creek just down the way, and they were sending men with buckets to go get some water because everybody was dying. They had no water to wash the wounds. They were running out of ammunition, and they sent. I don't know if they sent somebody to, or a few of them to go and get for help, but they were waiting for another group of the cavalry to come, and they knew that Custard was out there somewhere, but it wasn't showing up. But little did they know that Custard had been mowed down earlier. That you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then these guys were up on the hill, and the Indians were just kind of sitting there, surrounded the hill, just waiting. And then eventually that other troop started coming, and then apparently what I see is the Indians didn't like big confrontations, and they knew that the soldiers had gotten better weapons at this point in time. They could shoot farther. Their guns were deadlier, and so they were they're shooting bows and arrows. And I don't know if you ever, I know you shot a bow, but if you haven't ever shot a bow, it doesn't go that far. You can lob it a long ways, but the accuracy isn't there. But if you shoot like that, if you're shooting 50 yards, you're doing a good shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you do it 50 feet.
Well, 50 feet. Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
50 feet.
Yards would be for a gun. Okay. 50 feet. With the bow and arrow, especially the bows and arrows they had back then. They're just pieces of wood strapped with a string. Versus the compound bows that they have nowadays. They just didn't have that kind of power either. They were more about shooting multiple arrows versus shooting one big arrow to kill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's the thing. If he could beat that soldier to death with his bow, that bow had to be pretty strong.
Well, yeah.
And I've seen some of the bows, and some of them, it depended on who made it and the kind of wood, but some of them were pretty daggum strong.
Yes, they'd make bows out of wood, and they would make them out of the sheep horns too. Did you ever hear about the sheep horn ones?
No.
Yeah. I have to. I watched a guy doing it on YouTube. I don't think he's still alive, but anyway, he had a thing. He was teaching people, and he'd make all these things, and they would. He got taught how to make the sheep horn ones, the big ram's horns. And then they would bend the ram's horn and make a bow out of it. It was super strong, lasts a long time, and
Wow.
But yeah, and you can't just make them overnight either.
No.
It took quite a while. But neat little things like that. But even with the best bow they could possibly make, you're still not gonna get a long shot like you are from a rifle. Just
right. Exactly.
And as you know, during the Civil War, they came out with the repeating rifles, the lever actions, put a bunch of bullets in there, and you could boom, 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 the revolvers. And the Indians just didn't have access to the bullets either, like you were saying, or the gunpowder. And they also were, they had the Gatling guns that would just mow everybody down. Cannons, that was a big deterrent with a lot of the troops and the Indians was even before all these guns, is they just had a big cannon and they would fill it with fodder and just shoot and boom, and not only a ball, but lots of little BBs or heck, they put silverware in there if they had anything, rocks, something like that. It was just all come out of there at once, boom, and you wipe a whole half the army out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Gatling, Richard says the Gatling gun wasn't fair at all. Yeah, this is stuff that would just turn the tide of war. It does in any war. The guy with the best weapons always seems to do better or win or have the upper advantage. With the Romans and the Greeks, it was they had their spear was just a foot longer than the other guy's spear, and that helped them win the war. Their shields were a little bit bigger, or it's not so much anything else but the weapons. That's what it boils down to. You give
because something was done years ago where the British their swords were a lot longer than the Romans. And somebody was like, well, how come the Romans didn't have longer swords? And they said, because the longer sword was not near as efficient in close combat. So where a guy had a really long sword and trying to swing it, they'd take this little short sword and just run right up into him, And they were surprised that here's all these Roman soldiers with these little dagger-like swords compared to the English broadsword. And that was one of the things that I was surprised. I was like, well, that kind of sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and it's a sword for whatever you need to what you're fighting for. Like once the knights got armor, you needed a bigger, heavier sword to cut through it or bend the armor or pierce the, plus when you're striking, it's just like when you're chopping wood. You got a really light axe and you hit the log, nothing happens. But if you get a big maul and it's a 9-pound maul, you literally have to drop it and that wood splits in half.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was same with all this other stuff. The Indians, they just didn't, and when they didn't fight a lot of guys either. It was like, there's 1,000 Indians and 200 men, and that kind of brought the odds even. But yeah, it wasn't so good. Anyway, okay, what do we got for a story tonight?
Well, we got the Rabbit Brothers.
The Rabbit Brothers. All right.
Yeah, let me get myself set up here better for reading the story. Let's see here. I'm almost ready.
Good night, Jeannie. She's heading off to bed. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you enjoyed the story, even though it wasn't all that. It was more blood and guts.
Anyway, blood and guts.
But we had to find out about Custer and his battle. Maybe one of these days I'll just do a show on Custer again. I did one once before, but
Yeah, that's been a long time ago.
Yeah, but this is good to see it from the Indian side. It really is. These battles and how they looked at it like, hey, stop that. We're going out to battle, and I gotta try to put this eagle feather in my hair before I go out fighting. And then of course there's we got the night. You notice they had the night guys up there watch them. So you got the night soldiers and you got the day soldiers. The soldiers on the hill are fighting all night, and the Indians got the night shift and the day shift. and the soldiers, they're trying to do everything they can not to get killed. Like the one guy, he's hiding in the brush, and the little kids are shooting arrows at him, trying to burn the brush because they're just playing with them. And the naked guy, he's trying to play dead. And then, of course, the women. If the women would have cut off his tallywhacker, he probably would have made it. but somebody would have scalped him eventually.
Yeah,
Unless it was
because
Paul.
he would have been screaming.
Yeah. You just don't play dead for somebody scalping you.
Nope.
Yeah, but maybe next week I'm gonna jump ahead to where Black Elk goes to the fort, and then he joins up with Buffalo Bill, and he goes over to England. Can't make this stuff up. This guy lived the most interesting life. He was there for everything from the Battle of Little Bighorn to Buffalo Bills, Wild West show, went over to England, come back, was there for Wounded Knee. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we ready?
Yeah, anytime you are. Looks like Chloe's seen a UFO. I saw a green fireball shoot across the sky and 3 UFOs.
Wow.
Well, good for
cool
you, Chloe.
Bean.
That's pretty cool.
Which way were they going?
Well, they're not headed to my house. Dang it. One of these days, I'm going to get an interview with an alien. Good, bad, or otherwise. Yes. Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Our story for today, is The Rabbit Brothers, told by John Armstrong. And again, this is from the Seneca Indian myths. Tondanayet is white rabbit, and Dagwanayet is whirlwind. Now, we've had whirlwind in several different stories. So here he comes again. 6 brothers and a sister lived in a longhouse in a clearing in the woods. The house stood east and west with a door at each end and a fire in the middle. 3 brothers occupied one half of the house and 3 the other half. Each man was obliged to stay on his own side of the fire, never crossing to the other side, and always to go in and out at his own door, never using the door of the other 3. Whenever the brothers were away hunting, the sister was alone in the house. She had the right to go everywhere, in and out both doors. The Tondanayets lived a long time in this way. Then one day the eldest brother asked, "How would it be if I were to marry and bring my wife into the house?" "Oh," answered the brothers, "it would be well if she didn't abuse us." He went to an old woman who lived in the West and had 6 daughters and asked, "How would you like to have me marry one of your daughters?" "Very well," said the mother, "if you would be kind to her and not abuse her." He promised to be kind and went home. The girl made a basket full of marriage bread, and the next day came to his house bringing the bread. The brothers were glad. They ate the bread, and the woman stayed. Her brother told her that 3 brothers had one half of the house and 3 the other half, and each 3 had their own door. The sister was the only person who could go in and out at either door. For a time, the woman was satisfied, and the Tondanayets were happy. But one day, she said to herself, "I'm not going to obey such a silly rule. I'll go out whichever door I choose." She crossed the house and went out of the forbidden door. The minute she did this, her husband, who was hunting in the woods, in crossing a fallen tree, got the strings of his moccasins tangled on a knot of the tree, fell and hung there, head down, helpless. 5 of the brothers came home from hunting. They missed their brother and waited for a long time for him. At last they took their torches and started off to look for him. After a long search, they found him hanging to the tree, stiff and half dead. They carried him home, rubbed him, and brought him to life. The next morning, when the man was himself again, he began to scold his wife, who, by her disobedience, had almost killed him. He said, "You will kill us all. I don't want you any longer. Go home. You can't stay here." They were both very angry. He started to drive her out, but as he went toward her, she held up a skin blanket which she wore over her shoulders, and instantly the man's eyes were on the blanket. The second brother, seeing what the woman had done, screamed, "You have killed my brother. You have taken out his eyes. I will kill you." And he ran after her. But before he reached her, she turned, threw up the blanket, and immediately his eyes were on the blanket. In the same manner, the other brothers followed her, and each in turn lost his eyes. All groped their way back to the house and sat down in despair. Now the young sister was left to keep her brothers alive. Each day she went to the woods to collect roots and oak nuts to feed the blind men. One day, when she went to the river for water, she heard loud laughter, and looking up saw a canoe coming, and in it were 2 children who were having great sport. They drew near and said to the girl, "You must come and ride with us. It is great fun." "I cannot," said the girl. "I have to take care of my blind brothers." "Oh, come a little way," urged the children. "You don't know how nice it is." "No," said the girl, "I cannot. But only a little way. We will let you ride out again." At last, after much urging, the girl got into the canoe. The children turned it and went a short distance. Then she said, "I must get out." "Oh, go a little further, just to the next turn." When they got to the turn, she again begged to get out. They said, "Just a bit further." Soon they came to a lake. As the girl looked toward the stern to beg the child to let her out, she saw a fat, ugly old man sitting there. Looking to the other end of the canoe, she saw the little child was gone. She was left alone with the terrible old man. They went on swiftly and soon came to an island on which there was a bark house. The old man said, "Get out and go into the house." It was a strange looking house, and in it sat a fat old woman. The man said to her, "I have brought nice game for you." "Thank you, answered the old woman, and turning to the girl, she said, "Take that bed on the shelf." The man said, "Let her be well fed." They gave her plenty to eat, and after a time the girl knew that she was growing fat. Her body felt heavy. There was another girl about her own size in the house. Waking up one morning, she saw a great many hands and feet hanging on the beams, and she asked the other girl why they were there. She said, "Those are the hands and feet of people who have been eaten up. When these man-eaters are hungry, if they haven't any fresh meat, they boil dried hands and feet and eat them. When they kill us, today or tomorrow, they will eat our bodies and hang up our feet and hands to make soup of when they get hungry. As the girl lay thinking of her fate, she saw someone looking down through the smoke hole, and she asked, "Who are you? What are you looking for?" "I am the son of Dagwaniyant, Whirlwind. I can save you if you do as I tell you. The old woman wants to kill you today. She will send you to get the water that you are to boil in. Go to the lake, pick up 3 round stones, put them side by side at the edge of the water. Some distance from the stones, stick a wooden mannequin in the ground. When you have carried 2 pails full of water to the house, I will meet you with a canoe. After the old woman has waited for a while, she will come to the lake to look for you. She will find the mannequin and think you have turned yourself into it. She will take her club and beat the mannequin, and we will gain time." Whirlwind's son went away. Soon the old woman called out, "Here, it's time to get up. Go and bring me some water." The old woman got her kettle ready to put over the fire, and the girl went to the lake for water. She found 3 round stones and placed them side by side at the water's edge, stuck a mannequin in the sand, and went back to the house. When she went for the 3rd pailful, Whirlwind's son was standing there with one end of his canoe in the sand. The girl put the stones into the canoe and jumped in herself. The young man pushed off the canoe, and away they went. They rowed as fast as they could and were a long way out before the old woman missed the girl. She hurried to the lake and, seeing nothing of her, walked up and down until she saw the mannequin. Thinking it was the girl, she pounded the mannequin with her club till, chancing to look across the lake, she saw in the distance a canoe, and in it Whirlwind's son and the girl. "Oh, you good-for-nothing creature," called she, "why did you carry off my game?" And taking out a hook and line, she hurled it after the canoe. The hook caught into the canoe, and she pulled it rapidly towards the shore. When the young man saw that they were nearing the shore, he called to the girl, "Turn the canoe on one side." She did so and broke the hook with one of the stones. Then they righted the canoe and hurried on again. The old woman threw another hook, saying, "I'll kill you both." They turned the canoe over a second time and broke the hook with the second stone. And a third time she threw a hook, and a third time they broke it. Then she stooped down and began to drink up the lake, saying, "I'll get you at last. You'll not escape me." Soon they saw the canoe was going in a swift current straight to the shore and into the old woman's mouth. Whirlwind's son waited till they were near, and then running to the bow of the canoe, he ripped up the old woman's body with a sharp flint knife, outshot the water, and carried the canoe to the other shore. The young man drew the canoe onto the sand, and the two went toward his mother's house. Then he asked the girl, if she would be his wife. She consented, and when they were near the cliffs, he said, I will put you in a hollow stump till I go and see my mother. She lives in the cliff at the head of the creek. She is a cross woman and might harm you. He left the girl in a stump and went on. When he came to his mother's house, 2 wolves sprang at him and barked furiously. Get away, you miserable wolves! Why do your wolves bark at me? Asked he of his mother. Because you smell of people. That is no reason. I go everywhere. Of course I smell of people. And he struck and scolded the wolves till they slunk away. After a while he said, Well, mother, what would you think if I took a human being for a wife? Would you be like your wolves? I wouldn't be angry, but would you like a human being? Yes, I have a body. You have only a head, but I am like a human being. I have a nice wife out there in a stump. Will you go and bring her in? The old woman went to the stump. When the girl saw the head, she was frightened. But the head said, Don't be afraid. I will keep my wolves away. The girl went home with the head, and the 3 lived happily together. After a while, twins were born, 2 handsome boys. The old grandmother nursed the boys and took great care of them. First she gave them bows and arrows, then she gave them all ball clubs. After that, they wanted fish spears. She told them they mustn't go away from the house. If they did, an old uncle who lived nearby might catch them. But the boys went wherever they liked. One day they saw a great pine tree and a nest. One said, If we go there, that old man might see us. Oh, said the other, we'll go, and if he shows himself, we will kill him. They went under the tree and made a noise. Their uncle looked down from his nest and called out, I saw you first. The boys looked up and said, Very well. The old man asked, What would you do if a storm of fish spears were to come down on you? Oh, we would like it. We'd take some of the spears to fish with. Make them come quickly. Old Man Whirlwind called for a storm of spears to come from the clouds. The boys crept under a big stone. They heard a great noise as of a storm coming toward their hiding place. It passed, and when they couldn't hear it any longer, they came out. There were a great many spears on the ground. They picked up the best spears they could find, took them home, and said to their grandmother, We have had good luck. Our uncle sent a storm of spears. Don't go there again, said the old woman. He will kill you. The boys laughed. The next morning they went toward the pine tree. When they were near, they hired a mole to carry them under the ground till they were at the tree. When there, they called out, We see you, uncle. Then one of the boys asked, What would you do if a storm of fire should come down on you? I should die, said the old man. Let it come, said the boy. That minute, fire fell from the clouds. The boys hid under a great rock. When the storm was over, they found their uncle lying dead on the ground. His head had burst. When they told their grandmother what they had done, she cried and said, "He was my brother, all the brother I had." One day when the boys were playing around, they found a great hole in the ground, and in the hole were 6 blind men. "What made you blind?" asked the boys. "A woman took our eyes from us and stole our sister." "Maybe our mother is your sister. Our father stole us from a man-eater. You must be our uncles. We will find your eyes." The men told the boys where their home was, and the 2 started off. When they were near the house, one brother said to the other, "You will be a white deer, and I will be a wolf and chase you. When you run toward the house, the woman will come out and chase me. While she is gone, you must steal the eye blanket." The woman heard a wolf, and running out, saw it was following a white deer. She picked up a club and chased the wolf. The deer became a boy, found the eye blanket, and ran off with it. When the boys came back to where their uncles were, they separated the eyes, gave a pair to each man. Then they could see their nephews. After that, the 6 brothers lived with their sister and nephews in Old Woman Whirlwind's house. The end. Now, how about that for a story? A?
Yeah, that was a good one. There's a little bit of everything in there.
Yep. And, there's, in several, we were talking about, I mentioned this earlier to you before we started. I said, there's, the story is kind of intermingled. And, so we've heard of the man-eaters. We've heard where there's a canoe and they go to an island. And, there's different versions of how that works and who's on the island. This time it was a big fat woman, but she tried, it won. The thing with the hook has been in the story before, where they tried to suck up the lake. That was in a story, but how it was interlaced with the other things, it made this story interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It was about it. I'm just thinking about it, was about 3 stories mixed together. I liked it.
I wonder if these people who are, telling the stories, or the stories that got repeated, is like, okay, so I heard 5 stories, and now I'm going to have to tell a story because I'm old, or I'm a storyteller now. And they come up and say, Grandpa, tell me a story. And I think, okay, well, and then I take some of this story and some of that story I heard, and I make a whole new story with it.
Well, also, you got to understand that he's listening to different people when he tells the story.
Yeah.
So, somebody from, further north have got a shorter story. And then somebody from another tribe further south, it's more embellished. And there's 3 stories woven together, but it's still from the same tribe, still with the Senecas. But, the difference in the stories, I believe, it has to do with where the tribes were, and who was relating the story. And my grandpa told it like this, and because these aren't legends and they're only stories, there's differences in how they were told. Yeah. And whoever was telling them would embellish them as well. So, but many of the stories, I got to say, are retold by the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he messed with the story. I think whoever was telling him the story as he wrote it down,
Mm-hmm.
that's, where the story might have changed or morphed. Anyway, I
Yeah.
love I love reading these stories every week. So thank you all.
Oh, I love hearing them.
And while we were messing around earlier, I picked two cards for tonight. And I just noticed that they're both upside down. Not that that's bad, but that they're both upside down. And so the first card out for tonight, my friends, is Raven, number 16 in the book. And Raven is magic. Raven, black as pitch, mystical as the moon. Speak to me of magic. I will fly with you soon. Throughout time, oop, get away. Throughout time, Raven has carried the medicine of magic. This has been true in many cultures across the planet. It is sacred in the medicine ways to honor Raven as the bringer of magic. If the magic is bad medicine, the carrier may be honored out of fear rather than out of respect. Those who fear Raven may do so because they have been dabbling in areas in which they had no knowledge and a spell that may have backfired on them. Rather than analyzing the dark side of sorcery, realize that you will fear Raven only if you need to learn about your inner fears or self-created demons. Now, Raven, the bringer of magic. So the magic is up to you. And if it's dark magic, you don't have to accept it, by the way. Raven magic is a powerful medicine that can give you the courage to enter the darkness of the void, which is the home of all that is not yet in form. The void is called the Great Mystery. Great Mystery existed before all other things came into being. Great Spirit lives inside the void and emerged from the Great Mystery. Raven is the messenger of the void. So you want to find out something and you ask the Raven. If Raven appears in your spring, you are about to experience a change in consciousness. This may involve walking inside the Great Mystery on another path at the edge of time. It would portend a signal brought by the Raven that says, you have earned the right to see and experience a little more of life's magic. Raven's color is the color of the void, the black hole in space that holds all the energy of the creative source. In native teachings, the color black means many things, but it does not mean evil. Black can mean the seeking of answers, the void, or the road of the spiritual or the non-physical. Let me read that again. Black can mean the seeking of answers, of the void, the seeking of answers in the void, or the road of the spiritual or the non-physical. The blue-black of Raven contains an iridescence that speaks of the magic of darkness and a changeability of form and shape that brings an awakening in the process. So Raven's trying to tell you to wake up. Raven is the guardian of ceremonial magic and in absentia healing. In absentia healing, it means that we call upon Raven. We can all be here together tonight and ask for a healing and ask for Raven to deliver it, but we don't have to be present. in order to ask that. That's an absent. In any healing circle, Raven is present. Raven guides the magic of healing and the change in consciousness that will bring about a new reality and dispel dis-ease or illness. Raven brings on the new state of wellness from the void of the great mystery and the field of plenty. Raven is the messenger that carries all energy flows of ceremonial magic because between the ceremony itself and the intended destination. They want me to read that again. Raven is the messenger that carries all energy. All energy flows of ceremonial magic between the ceremony itself and the intended destination. So we all get together tonight and have a prayer circle, and we are the ceremonial magic between the ceremony, and then we're sending it out to help someone, and Raven is that. For instance, if a ceremony is being performed to send energy to a disaster area where people need courage and strength, Raven would be the courier for that energy flow. The intention would be to allow the people of the devastated area to feel the concern and support of the participants in the ceremony. Now, this thing was upside down. Raven reversed is not to be taken lightly. It can mean that the boomerang is coming home. If you have wished harm to another, beware. If you have asked for this harm to teach you, in turn, what it feels like. If you have not been wishing evil on another, that's good. Contrary, Raven may be bringing you a warning that you are not equipped to move into another level of consciousness until you have mastered the one you are currently working with. Raven may be bringing you a warning that you are not equipped to move into another level of consciousness until you have mastered the one you are currently working with. Now, there have been folks who are talking about moving into the fourth and fifth dimensions, and for many years now, I've said, you got to learn how to deal with the third, and you still haven't learned all your lessons yet. You can't jump into the fifth, and this is that's what's this saying. If you're not equipped, you don't have enough information to move into another consciousness. On yet another level, Raven may be telling you that you have forgotten the magic of life and have settled into a mundane rut. If this rut suits you and you do not want to experience the extraordinary magic in your life, ask Raven to fly through your dreams and give you a taste of its medicine. If you do, you may never be the same again. Contrary, Raven may also portend a time of smoky, confused messages that you cannot see or hear because your intellect is insisting that magic is not real. If you cannot imagine or pretend to, due to your lack of faith in magic or miracles, healing cannot take place. Raven may be pecking at the door to your consciousness, but you will not receive unless you clear the smoke and seek the other realms of imagination and awareness of where magic lives. To right the contrary, Raven, you may need to seek a trained shaman to clear the energy field you have created. You might need to block some negative energy sent by another person or cancel the harm you wished on someone else. Keep it clean. This is the message when the magic moves into the smoky shadow. Seek healing and a clearing of intention. Then reach for the stars and honor Mother Earth and all other living things. Fill yourself with the magic of being alive and call Raven to teach you the proper way of using the energy. Wow, that was a long one, but that's some good information though. Now, my next other one, and we haven't heard from, I don't think we've heard from Whale in a while. And Whale is upside down again, both cards tonight. Whale is the record keeper. Whale of mighty oceans, you have seen it all. Secrets of the ages are heard within your call. Teach me how to hear your words and how to understand the very roots of history of when our world began. Whale is the record keeper. Interesting, we've got magic and the record keeper. The keeper of, yeah. Whale is very much like a swimming library. Whale carries the history of Mother Earth and is said to have been placed here by the ancients from the dog star Sirius. Biologists say that whale is a mammal and very possibly lived on land millions of years ago. In tribal legend, whales move into the ocean happened when the earth shifted and Lemuria, the motherland, went below the waves. All of our petroglyphs speak of the motherland Mu and the disaster that brought the red race to North America from the west, beyond the great waters. The symbols in the petroglyphs speak of the rivers and mountains crossed by our ancestors when they sought solid ground as the water receded. Whale saw the events that led to the settling of Turtle Island, which is North America, and has kept the records and the knowledge of the motherland alive. It is said that Mu will rise again when the fire comes from the sky that lands in another ocean on Mother Earth. They've been predicting that a large meteor will hit for a long time, and here's Whale. The native medicine people are waiting for this event as the next sign of Earth changes. Earth's children will have to learn to unite and honor all the ways and all races in order to survive. That is one of the big messages, I'll tell you what. If Whale has beached itself in your cards in the contrary medicine, implies that you are not following your sonar or honoring or homing device. Let me read that again. The contrary medicine implies that you are not following your sonar or homing device. Yep. On some level, you have forgotten that you hold all the answers that you need to survive, to grow, and to claim the power of your chosen destiny. It may be that you are having to deal with a lot of chatter in your head and cannot get to your personal records. If so, you may need to use other sounds to enter the silence. The drum or the rattle, the Indian flute, or the sounds of nature may help. The call of Whale is the lullaby of the tides. Rock yourself gently and float into the world of the sea. Flow with the waters of time and collect your answers. They are the only truth that will lead you to your personal pathways of knowing. Contrary Whale is saying that you must desire to know. You must seek the whale song within you. In hearing whales call, you will connect to the ancients on a cellular level. And then as you relax into the flow of the song's rhythm, you'll begin to open your unique library of records. It may not come all at once. It may take practice. But if you hold the desire to know close to your heart, it will be the whale's gift to you. Look to the great star nation and send gratitude to Sirius for the song of the whale. So crows got the magic and whales got the records. So I hope that that meant something to y'all tonight. That's an interesting two card draw.
Yeah.
We're not playing poker. So we've got 2 hours and right at 2 hours, 2 hours and 1 minute. Wow, that's pretty good, ain't it?
Yes, it is. I was trying to pull up a whale song.
And while you're looking, uh, for those folks who are like, looking for your own records, what is it? And you ask Whale to help you. And Raven's got the magic to help you find those things. And call upon the magic to help you with the whale, But if you've ever, listened to a whale song, it's just kind of eerie in a way, but
Yeah,
calming at the same time.
can you hear that? It's the whale song. It's kind of neat. Anyway, there we go. Whale song.
The different calls of the whales are similar, but they're never quite the same. And also remember that whales can do their song and be heard for miles away by other whales.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Much like elephants can, in that elephants do a low rumble and can be heard for long distances by other elephants. By the way, I just thought about that.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know about these critters in the sea. I mean, the whales can sing that song and they can talk with other whales miles and miles and miles and miles away. They were saying that like sharks can smell, miles and miles away. We just have no clue about the ocean. We are like fish out of water in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you, Robert, for having me again for another show, and I want to thank all the folks who come. On my behalf, I want to say thank you, and I hope that you stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. And over to you, Robert.
Yeah, are you having a show tonight?
Yeah, short one, I think.
Okay, sounds great. I'm sure everybody will be heading over there soon. Get yourself another cup of coffee and away you go. As for me, I am going to head to bed here soon. I got to go to work tomorrow, but we're going to bring you a great show, everybody, this Saturday again. Hopefully I'm going to cross my fingers. I have Ryan on. He said yes, and we'll see what happens. But if not, we'll have somebody else on. We are going to hit it hard and have a great guest. So join me Saturday night. And don't forget, Wednesday night, after Nina's show, Hump Day Message, and her secret stream and all of that stuff, Wednesday night, don't forget to join me on Stupid Talk and Stupid Talk Daily as we tell you the news Wednesday night. So don't forget to find that and subscribe. I think the link is in the description below. Pretty sure it is. Anyway, check that out. Tomorrow we're going to have the good crazy news like you've never heard it before, or maybe you have, on Stupid Talk and Stupid Talk Daily, or the non-religious truth channel on Nina's. So check it out there, and we'll see you then tomorrow night. All right. With that, remember, everybody, go out, do something nice for somebody, and remember, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.